All right, I can actually see what you guys are seeing. This is awesome. Okay, so as I mentioned, this is Iceland. This is Haifa's Falls. It's a piece that I just finished in the last couple of weeks, and it is an absolutely incredible wonder. It's not very large. To give you a scale, I mean, there's my hands. It's about 12 inches by 8 or 9 inches, but it was I have a short film I did from this as well, which you can actually find on my YouTube channel. For those who are into YouTube, I've got, I don't know, 150 videos at least on there, and some short films too. Hey, thank you, Marianne, for letting me know that's good. Appreciate it. And so this is one of the most recent paintings I finished. You're going to hear some extra noise because I'm dragging around a power cord now for my old battery. I'm going to go over to the other side to show another finished painting. Now, these paintings are only here temporarily. They belong to collectors, and so we can connect with them. But here's another piece that I just finished not too long ago. It's going to be in our upcoming book as well. And hey, Louise, nice to see you all the way from Monaco. So this painting, I actually finished it. Our collector had it at home all the way in Guelph. And then somehow, after photographing it for the book, I deleted the photos. So I had to get the painting back in order to carry that on. So there we go. 1 second, my power there. Be right back. Okay, I'm back. All right, I am back again. I keep getting a low power mode thing happening here. Okay, so let's carry on. Down through here, now I'll get into an actual, I actually have something a little more orderly to share with you guys as part of the actual process when we're done the tour here. A few other pieces. These are from Greenland here. That's actually Newfoundland. But then we've got Greenland. Now these are started in the field, get as far as I can, and back in the studio here, I finish them up. And sometimes, as you'll see, because these were both very much panoramic views, I was able to get 2 on a panel. I'll talk about the actual panels I use and so on in a couple minutes. But the white bars that you see, those I cut them off here in the studio. That's actually linen on wood. And in the field, I draw a line sort of to what I want for my composition. And then after that, I cut them all down back here. So these are some works in progress. As mentioned, there's also this very large piece here, which is 9 feet by 1.5 feet. I'm going to stand this up for a sec and get over there so I can talk about it for a moment. All right. So the audio is going to change because I've got to use a headphone jack to get some decent audio. Turns out with Facebook, you can't use a Bluetooth headset and get the microphone to work, so I'll plug it in once in a while. But this is Mount Logan. It's the highest peak in all of Canada. And this piece, which is 9 feet by about 3 feet, began a number of years ago as a small study, and it was so inspiring being there that I just had to stretch a large canvas. And eventually, 7 years later, got it all done. So. Now, let's get to the meat of things, and that's over here, my easel, and where I do my work. So, what we've got here, and for those artists out there, maybe you'll get a kick out of this. This is my easel. It's a truly incredible easel. I'm going to get a little more comfortable. Sorry, I'm going to have to ditch the audio because I only got 2 foot of cable here. And just go with the old mic that's on the camera. So, the reason I need to get over here is to demonstrate a bit more. This is a Hughes easel. You guys can still hear me okay? Camera's a little blurry. Yeah, unfortunately, this is a cellular network I'm using on my phone because I actually have no internet out here. It's one of the beauties actually of being out here is less distractions. So this here is a this is a Hughes easel, as I mentioned. And one of the beautiful things about it is that it is counterbalanced. So I'm able to adjust with different weights here and put different size canvases on it. And as I'm working, be able to stand up and down, sit down, stand, move around. It's really, really beautiful. You're blurry now. You can hear me. Thank you. Yes, cell internet is unfortunately not fun. Yeah, I'll talk a little louder on over here. It also moves left to right on a rack back here. So it allows me to work on really large works without having to move around and move all my gear around all the time, which is really sweet. No, the yellow wood reflection doesn't mess because it's generally behind everything, and I'm kind of focused on what's in front of me. So this is, let's see, so where do we go from here? So what I want to do, this is kind of a bit of an overview. I finally, for those who have been here before, I have a window, which has been absolutely wonderful to be able to see outside and get some fresh air. That's one thing I really missed. For about 2-3 years, I did not have a window. And so it felt like I was in a bit of a box. But anyway, it's all better now. Okay, so we're going to, so first of all, if there's any questions specifically about this, people were asking about lighting. I'll just get some of the basic overview done. So I've got my easel, naturally. My lighting, which you'll see up here, is all, the easel is a Hughes easel, and it's the model 4000. Okay, I'll try to put the earbuds back in. For next time around, I have a solution. I'll use my loud mic, but that's not going to work this time. So there we go, people. I'm back with the earbuds. So that's 5,000 Kelvin lights. I've got two lengths of 8-foot double fluorescent bulbs, and some additional ones over here. And it's kind of odd, perhaps. These additional ones point away from the easel, and the reason for that is that on a really big painting, the light from the fluorescent bulbs sort of drops off as it goes down the painting. It's brighter near the top and darker near the bottom. So when I set these lights up here, those additional lights that are basically spots pointing away, it allows some of that light to cast down near the bottom of the painting and gives me a bit of control for a little more even illumination. The easel, Hughes easel, he's down in, it's only one man in the world that makes them, and his name is Andrew, great guy down in Florida. And I'll do my best if you ask any questions on the, I'll be going back afterwards and trying to answer as many questions as I can on the posts as well. So that is, that's the easel, that's the lighting, 5,000 Kelvin. I use that lighting because it is, generally speaking, the closest to sort of natural light, I guess you can say. Hey, Tony, good to see you here. One more thing while you guys look at the easel, and I'll go over it. I've got to do one more thing. We're back. There we go. I have my light back on. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is, how big the studio is. Yes, a barn is a handy thing to have, that's for sure. So what I'm going to do next, if there's any questions about the studio specifically, sorry I've been kind of running a little rampant here with all the technical stuff I'm juggling right now, but it's been an absolutely marvelous place to grow into over the years. Oh, and you missed a favorite part. Let me show you. There's the mirror I referred to, which is really handy for when I'm painting. Above the mirror is one of our canoes, and this is a 20-foot 6-inch Kevlar carbon fiber canoe that was custom built by Bell Canoe Works for my wife and our daughters on our first Arctic trip in 2006. Now you'll notice what's unique about it is that it has 4 seats, and I got to back up just to get it all in. There we go. You can see a little better this way. And that's so that each of our children would have a spot to sit. And if anybody's into canoeing out there, they asked me what I wanted, and I said, well, it's got to have wood. I love wood. And so it was, the whole thing only weighs 60 pounds, which is just spectacular. And how do I get it down? Well, you can see, maybe I can point that system up there and over there. Those ropes go through those pulleys down to this corner, and I can unhook the ropes and let the whole thing down. So it's, you'll notice also that it has 2 yokes, carry yokes, this way the kids could carry it, but the middle yoke is not there. And they did that on purpose when Bell made this for us, because they'd watched our first film, A Painter's Odyssey, and realized that I like to paint from my canoe very often. And when there's a carrying yoke in the middle, it can get in the way of setting up my easel. So they built one with the portable yoke, which I have in the other room, which I can just bolt on whenever I need it with hand buckles. So while it's not in use, it's great to have up here. It makes me feel like I want to be out in it right now. Oh, now that I've got this camera working all properly again, I'll show you a couple more things. So first, and this might be a whole other story in of itself later on, here is the study for Asgard. I'm sorry, I'm tethered to a cord for power, which is getting in my way. So here we go. So this is Asgard. There we go. This I began in 2018. This also belongs to somebody who we're trying to connect with once COVID-19 wraps up. When I went in 2018 with my daughter Sydney for a 2-week hike on Baffin Island, one of the goals of that trek was to create a big painting of Mount Asgard as kind of a companion piece to my Mount Thor piece. If anybody's seen that, it's 9 feet by 5 feet. And this incredible sort of flat top of the mountain is very unique. And so about 50 kilometers into our journey, that was extremely exhausting. Turns out that there's a lot of bog on this trail. It was called the Akshay Pass in Iowetuk National Park. We arrived at this location and had a chance to really get to know this mountain. This is the Turner Glacier, and this is Glacier Lake. It's just an incredible place to hang out for a few days. And one morning, I finally got the view that I really was hoping for. And so after that moment, when this light came out and just momentarily struck the side of the mountain and the snow lit up and everything was swirling, it was like euphoric being out there in the field doing that. And so when I knew from that moment on that when I came back, it would have to be larger. And so this is, as I showed you earlier, but I don't know if you actually saw it because I couldn't see what you were seeing, is the large piece of Asgard just underway. It's just basically kind of started. And but that gives you a sense of where it's going. It's 8 foot 4 inches by 7 feet wide. And one thing I forgot to do when I stretched this large canvas is actually measure its width. And as it turns out, it didn't make it through that door. So I had a problem because it was stretched outside the barn and we tried to bring it in. And we were able to take a little bit off the trim, and it was just about a ½ inch. It was enough to get it in. So I remember from now on, whenever I want to do a big painting, to measure the doors first. These over here, these white ones, are paintings that are just waiting for me to get underway. This will be Georgian Bay, a study that I did from over there. And this one up here is a painting from up in Devon Island with an iceberg floating by the island. Yes, I do stretch all my own canvases up to a size. These I do all myself. This large one that I just showed you, Asgard, I had a company in Owen Sound do it, actually. And I had my own canvas and I had them stretch it. Yes, Cornelia, that's you know what that's about. And so these I'm excited to get into. Now, you may have noticed that, I'm not going to be doing specifically I'm not going to be doing specifically a tutorial, step-by-step how to paint. There's some incredible people out there that are doing that. You got Eric Rhodes, who's got a whole array of education for free. You got my buddies out in New Zealand. You got Richard Robinson. You got Andrew Tischler. These guys are doing great education. But when I start one of these blank canvases, if there's enough interest, I'm pleased to set up the camera and maybe do another live stream where I can kind of go through the process, all the way through, if you will. It won't be a step-by-step how to paint, but if you want to observe, and I'm glad to make commentary as I go along as to what I'm doing and what I'm thinking, then I'm pleased to share some of that. So let me know if that's something you would be interested in finding out as we go along. Make the doors bigger. Yes, that would be a good idea. So let me get into a couple of specific things. All right. One, because people have been asking, I want to show you basically the process of a painting in a nutshell from the field to the studio and some of the gear that's involved. And then I'm going to sit down at the easel for a bit and actually start into this painting again, which I've kind of left behind the last couple of days. So we're going to try to make this all work again with taking this camera off the tripod. And I'm going to have to unplug the earbuds again. Sorry, guys. But that's just the way it is. Okay. So my gear for the field has been, for years, a half-box French easel. And this half-box French easel is very practical for a number of reasons. One is it carries, especially, all my stuff inside. So there is a box inside here, as you can see, where I can put my paints and my paint brushes, my thinners. This lid that I took out, this protective lid, is also a pallet, which allows me to, from the back side, little latch in there locks it in place, and away I go. And I can actually use all this stuff in the field. I can keep my paints wet on here also. You'll see that these are on here with the one modification that I did, and that is I added bump-ons right here and up here in different places. And with these bump-ons, I'm able to actually close the edge of the palette and allow the paints to stay wet, which in the field is great because I can just move it around from place to place. The French easel is also a wonderful design because it's extremely flexible. The legs that are in it can drop down and adjust, and I can set it up almost any configuration I want. And I can also paint while it's sitting in the bottom of a canoe or on the ground simply by adjusting, leaving the legs in and setting it up. If you've seen my films, you may have noticed that I use this space often to put rocks into it to help keep it from blowing away. And of course I can adjust this for my various heights, or canvas or panels. Now, there is a drawback to this, and on my last trip in particular, when I was with Sydney for 2 weeks up on Baffin, the drawback became evident as it pushed my pack over 90 pounds and became very hard to carry. Now, this isn't 90 pounds, of course, but when I have all the camping gear with me and everything else, it really adds up. So the weight and the size is awkward to take out there, and I've beaten it up. I've had to re-glue it many times too. So this has been very useful, but I'm actually going through a process right now. And stay tuned for some videos to come on this. I'm very excited. Some of you may have heard of a company called Hatch. They came alongside to be a sponsor of our tour, and we had a show there last fall in Mississauga at their corporate office. Well, they're engineers, and about 20 of the engineers last month began a competition in-house to build CORY a better easel. And so we did some footage on all that, and actually tomorrow the designs are going to be presented to me, which is just fantastic. The owner of the company is a very big patron of the arts, and he saw the struggle I was having with carrying what I currently carry and said, you know what, our designers, our engineers, I bet you they can come up with a better solution. So they have been doing this, and I'm excited to see what they come up with as a possible alternate to my old French easel. And paint box. My panels I mentioned earlier that I paint on are carried in this box. And this box allows me to carry 10 wet panels at a time, 5 back to back. I made these boxes and there's slots so that you can get 2 in there. And so while the oil paints are wet, they're all good to go. And I can put them in and out and not worry about that. The actual surface that I paint on, it's actually a company, New Traditions Art Panels, a really nice artist down in the States who started making these years ago. So he makes panels of different sorts. We're talking dye bond, which is a form of aluminum, foam core, wood. So this is Belgian linen, archivally glued to 1/8 of an inch Baltic birch. And so this is everything I need. It's nice and light, and it's got the beautiful linen finish. This has been archivally glued, which means that if some damage happens to the wood down the road, I can actually remove the canvas itself and re-adhere it to something else. So this has been my go-to for panels or paintings up to 12 inches by 16 inches. It's been a great solution for me. And full disclosure, my first year of the project, they helped sponsor the project. Now when I started going to the Arctic, they're no longer able to the last couple of years, but I've been buying them anyhow because I like them so much. But when I want to do a big painting, like that guy, that's when things change. And that's when I haul out the big stuff. Here we go. This stuff here. So this is Frederick's Frederick's linen. There we go. Frederick's linen I've been using for years. Anything that I do that's of any kind of size. And the name's going to be backwards, I know, but there's Frederick's. I use Rick's double prime, so it's Rick's 111 double prime. It's a nice heavy body, and it's heavy enough that when I stretch a large canvas, it feels solid. And allows me still a very smooth surface to paint on. So the Frederick's is my go-to for any paintings that are above 12 by 16. And some have asked before, why not just use panels that are larger? Well, I like the give of the canvas, the push when it's stretched. It's like a drum. Once I get into larger paintings, that there's a bit of, it comes back, and the brush pushes and it comes back. So that's, and I'll mention one more easel-related item, and that is the Strata. So this Strata is designed by an artist in the US, and great little pochade box style easel. It mounts onto a tripod, and he's kind enough to let me take one of these out and give it a whirl. I took it to Greenland with me, and it was a really nice solution as well. It's adjustable in different ways. It's great for me for smaller trips. I'm not sure about taking it for a month, just because I like having everything in one box and not having to have a separate tripod, but this has been really great for certain applications. So this is a Strata easel. That's just part of it. The other part goes on the tripod. Okay, so if there's any questions about some of the easel gear and stuff like that, just put it in the comments and I'll get back to you later on. Let's move over to some actual painting stuff, I think. So let me see what I can do. Plug this phone back in so it does not die. Where'd my power go? We're getting to it. Okay. So, hello from where's that? Sausalito. Cool. Very nice. So guys, I appreciate your patience. I know I'm a little bit all over the place here trying to sort it all out, but hopefully it's of some use. And hopefully interesting a little bit. I'm going to do one more technical change because then I'll be all set. Oh, hey. I got to show you. I'll show you one more thing here. So I mentioned I've got the easel. Naturally, I have my palette. I have my paint brushes. I'll come to those in a moment. And I have this cool system up here that not many people get to see. So this, I do use photos for reference while I'm painting. I can't remember everything, and so I take photos when I'm in the field. And so to access my imagery easily, it's all rigged up on an old, my computer screen is rigged up on an old tripod leg to this system over here. And I'll demonstrate that in a moment. So what I've got to do is switch this mount and put the camera down here. And so in just a moment, I'm going to set up the camera on a tripod, and it's going to stay put for a while, and it won't be flying around everywhere like I have been. And but for now, I've got to do a little adapter because I'm one adapter short to make this work. It's I've done filmmaking for quite a few years, and the beauty about filmmaking is that I get to edit edit what I say, or do takes over and over again. So this is a little bit of a different challenge. So I'm going to mount this guy up here now. So I've got a big arm here, and I'm going to take the camera and mount it on the arm, which is a counterbalanced jib arm. And now we can leave the camera alone for a bit. Make sure we get the power plugged in. You don't want that falling out of power like last time. Okay. Rodney in Galtas, man, how's he doing? It was so nice to hang out with him when I was out there painting. Out in Galtas, you haven't been to Galtus, Newfoundland, you haven't been anywhere. It is an amazing place, way out there on the south edge of Newfoundland. Just beautiful, beautiful place. And Rodney took me out by boat to some of these places. Oh, there we go. All right, so I'm going to demonstrate this quickly before I forget. I'm going to move the camera back there. Okay, so my handy brother, Carl, came to the rescue when I told him about my issue of trying to look at photos while I'm painting. And it's always annoying. You can have an iPad, you can have whatever, but I like having a big screen. So this screen is connected wirelessly to my mouse and keyboard. And this tripod, as I mentioned, allows me to go up and down. So if I want to sit or if I want to stand, depending on the size of the painting. And way up at the top here, I'll tilt this up a little more maybe. Let's see. Oops, there we go. There. So he's got a system here with extruded aluminum that allows me to bring the whole computer monitor forward or backwards and to move it left or right and to elevate it up. So that system allows me to work, when I was working on a 15-foot painting, to move my reference monitor way off to the side, even bring it out in front of the canvas and back over. So it's been an incredible addition to the studio and really makes things go smoothly. And the point of all this tech isn't just to have tech. The point of it is to allow me, when I really want to paint, to focus on painting. The point of it having nice easel isn't just because it goes up and down. It means that I can thoroughly be immersed in the process instead of fighting with the easel to adjust things as I go along. So that's what that's all about. All right. Oh, I'm so sorry to hear about Rodney. Thanks for sharing, Anthony. That's awful. Please give my very best to his family. I remember his daughter did some singing actually out on the docks when I was doing some filming out there. That was okay. Well, that's not good news. Okay, guys. So this is the real deal. Nothing planned here. Before I get into this, if there's any questions, please ask away. This thing keeps turning on me. Whoops, one sec. It's turning all by itself. And I think it's wrapping up. There we go. That should work. Cool. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so this painting, let's talk for a moment what I have on the easel. That's the studio. Let me think what else is going on here. So I start the paintings in the field. You saw some of those earlier on the wall in progress. And naturally I finish them here. As much as possible I start them all in the field, but not always able to start everyone in the field. I'll get into the paints in just a moment. And what I want to do here is, now for those who, this kind of ends the tour, if you will. This is going to be maybe of greater interest for artists in particular, because I'm going to basically show the process of what I do when I walk in here on a regular day. I'll try to plug this back in. Hopefully it's close enough to me that it'll reach, and I can keep it on. There we go. So this painting is in progress, and it is from the Northwest Passage, and these are old buildings from the RCMP. It's a fascinating place of history and beauty. And here, there were a couple of RCMP officers who were stationed to keep an eye out over the Northwest Passage for any incoming ships. But it was very, very isolated, and it was something that they were not used to. And sadly, after a couple of years, it really didn't end too well. I understand there was a line painted or across the floor to keep them separated into two rooms, and then eventually one of them took their lives. So it's a very stark contrast to have this element of humanity within this large Arctic kind of scene that was very gray the day I was there. So it's about half done maybe at this point. What I want to do is actually just go through step by step. Basically, I'm going to come in and I'm going to start doing it, and I'll talk about what I'm doing. The first step I normally have to do when I come into the studio is clean that thing. So my palette, I tend to leave it kind of a mess, sometimes more of a mess than others. This will be a bit of a process. It's going to take a few minutes to spread it all around. So it's up to you guys if you want to see it all, or let me know if you just want me to do a couple and move on. But the process for cleaning the palette is sort of the work side of things. I will take my, the less glorious stuff. I will take my palette knife. And the palette knife, well, about the only thing I use a palette knife for is actually cleaning my palette. I've never been into to actually laying the paint on terribly thick. One of my reasons for that is I want to convey sort of a sense of being there and walking into the painting. And I feel that for my approach, if I were to lay paint on thick, that paint can cast a shadow when you're viewing the surface of the canvas and would kind of draw the eye away from the idea of looking deep into it. So that's why I tend to paint smoothly. So I'm going to take some of my paint from yesterday and clean it off. And it's a bit of a mess as usual, but I've never been the cleanest painter. Some of this stuff is already dried on, so I'm just going to get the most of it with some thinner, as much as I can, removed. Yeah, there we go. There we go. So this part, like I say, it's not the most fun. What I think I'm probably going to do, because we've been going fairly long here, is just get into painting a little bit. But if there's enough interest, maybe do another one of these later on where it's just painting. Of course, you know, I want to get the tour out of the way because many of you have never been here before, and many of you have been curious and asking, and many of you are far away and you won't have a chance to maybe get here in person. So, you know, that was sort of the primary focus of this particular exercise. But I'll take some of that paint off, and then I need to remove the paint. Now, a lot of the paint itself is very, yeah, it's an old wooden palette I've been using for 20 years. It is nothing fancy. I've tried glass. I don't know. There's just something about wood that I like. It's getting chipped in here and everything, but it still seems to work. So I'm going to get in here and peel back the outer sort of part of the paint. Hard to see from that distance maybe, but the paint dries with a bit of a skin. And to save the paint, I'll actually take the skin off and clean it back a bit. And sometimes it's too far gone, and that's it. So that process essentially is nothing glamorous. I'll just do a couple colors for now so we can move it along and you get an idea. You'll notice also that I have a very wide range of colors. It's difficult for me to limit myself. I know there's a lot of theories about people who paint outdoors especially, to limit your palette to a handful of colors. And gosh, I guess I just love all these colors. It's hard to hold back. And so I have a lot. I think I've got 20 some. Some colors only appear on my palette you know, under certain circumstances, depending upon what the painting is, especially if like there's icy blue tones to deal with, then I'll bring certain colors like this guy in here that aren't normally on my palette. But it's not to have all these colors so that I can just make the painting process quicker by choosing the right color. Because in fact, I don't think I rarely ever use any color pure. The colors, having this much variety allows me more mixing options. So when I'm really aiming for subtlety in my work, I think, you know, it's a good time to answer one of Mark's questions. Well, yeah, Yukon. We got to get Yukon back here. What? Janet's supposed to bring Yukon out shortly. Yeah, he does hang out with me quite often. So, and that's not too bad having his hair around here. Let's see here. So I'll answer Mark Vanderkam. You had a couple questions, and I'm going to answer some of those while I'm cleaning the palette so I can get some multitasking done. He said, before I commit to a 10-foot wide painting, he said, I assume you must be pretty certain it'll be a good one before you put in all the work of actually painting it. This is true. Describe your inner creative process for exploring, considering, and eventually arriving at a composition and the various elements that go into it, lighting, atmospheric conditions, such as snow, wind, rain, etc. What is the process before a final painting? To decide what goes into that painting. And do you keep spreadsheets of all the various options and then select which ones to include? Or are you in a mindless Zen state and proceeding more on feel and intuition, or somewhere in between? Okay, well, let me look at you guys while I answer that. So let's use that guy as an example. There it is. So the process of creating a large painting it's inspired from my time in the field, and it's very much inspired by the experience and the emotional connection I have when I'm out there. It pretty much all comes out. So maybe the Zen state mode is certainly more to do with it than that, than anything else. When I was hoping to find a big view of Asgard, I looked around, and as much as I'm looking for that emotional experience, because that's what I'm trying to convey in my work, is what I feel when I'm out there. Layers of sort of art knowledge, I guess, accumulated over the years are kind of factoring in as I go along. And so, for example, I will have gone out to look at this view, I think the evening before, or the overall landscape. I went for a long hike, but the sun was behind the mountains, and as beautiful as it was, I started to really not feel that there was enough lighting, cascading on the land to create something compelling. And it's one of those challenges, actually. People say when you're out there, you could do a painting everywhere you go, and you could, but there's a real humbling challenge of trying to actually do justice to these incredible places that I'm painting. And so I put a lot of time and energy into trying to decide what it is I'm going to paint when I'm out there. And I'd say 90% of the time, when I'm ready to do, when I know in the field that I'm going to do something larger, because I feel that the canvas in front of me is just not large enough to contain that which I'm feeling when I'm out there. And so in the case of Asgard, I spent several days running around and started a couple other paintings, but none of them quite had the combination of things. So that's where lighting and those other elements come into play. So in order of priority, once I get past the emotion, I would say lighting and composition are my 1-2, and they're interchangeable. I want very original compositions. I don't know how many hundreds of potential paintings I have passed on because while in the field, it will connect with me, but then it will register that, hey, I painted something that has similar kind of composition to this. And therefore, I'll pass on it. Maybe the trees were on the left and the way the islands lined up. And so that kind of stuff really, it's tempting to do the painting, but I really want every painting I do to be different than anything I've done before. And that often, I've spent days in the field not starting a painting just for that very purpose sometimes, trying to find just that right element. And when it's a really big piece, then usually there's some amazing lighting that has come into it. You can kind of see up there a little bit, as I mentioned in the study, that lighting right up there. That's what did it for me. When the clouds, they uncovered enough that it sort of revealed this little bit of lighting, and it only lasted a few minutes. It was just momentary. But that, along with the dynamic composition possibilities of the glacier and the mountain peak and the lake, and then the sun coming across the lake, that didn't happen at the same time necessarily as the light up on the mountain. But man, that's the beauty of being an artist. I'm not trying to convey a 60th of a second. I'm trying to convey the experience while I'm there. And so I've been able to bring some of these elements together into this large painting. So I hope that addresses Mark's question a little bit about conditions. So no spreadsheets, and more Zen, feeling, intuition, and also an understanding, hopefully over years and years, of studying other people's works, master works of artists from the past. And whenever I see one that hits me, I try to understand what is it about that painting that really strikes me. What is it? What's going on there? And so if some of those elements can come into play while I'm in the field, that's when it all kind of comes together. So there we go. Here, back to my palette. Oops, I pressed a button there and it switched it around. There we go. Sorry. I'm back. All right, to the palette. Well, you know, I know not everyone's going to want to hang for the whole thing, so before I go through all the palette, maybe I'll do an overview on my brushes as well. This way, if you know, I will actually carry on painting after, and I'll let it run for a while. For those who just want the you know, to watch over my shoulder, but just so we don't hold everybody up who's you know, got things to do. There's the palette. I'll show you quickly the paints that I use. Here's my paints, and I have been using my Mary paints for some time. My Mary is my Mary Puro in particular is a very high quality line of incredible single pigment paints. So the colors are very pure. They're strong, but they mix beautifully. For about 15 years before that, I was using Dale Arowney professional artist paints. Now I'll be transparent. Dale Arowney started sponsoring me 15 years ago. Their paints were really great to use, and the company that owned them took on this line of paints and said, hey, do you want to try some of these as well? So I said, sure. So I would say about 95% of the paints I've transitioned to over the last couple of years have been these. There's still a couple of colors in the Dale Arowney range that I really like still. So a couple of those get mixed into the works. And there's some colors I just can't get. I still got an old tube of this Cerulean Blue that is of a certain color that I just can't find anywhere else. So I still like that a lot too. So that's some of the paint stuff there. I use basic odorless thinner for the actual painting process. And you can see I got my little guys right here. And I got bigger ones with my paint thing, which I'll roll over. That's what I use most of the time. I just use straight odorless thinner. I will on occasion mix in a bit of linseed oil. And I do a mix of linseed oil and odorless thinner. That is, you know, just a little bit of oil and the rest thinner. And I'll use that when I'm working on paintings that have a lot of darks in them. For those who've painted with oils, dark areas of the paint tend to dry flat. And so when you put wet paint back on top, it becomes hard to judge the color matching. So I might put a bit of this in here so that it dries with a bit more gloss. Barring that, I'll do what I did with this painting. And that is, I put an entire coat yesterday of spray varnish, of retouch varnish. And the retouch varnish sort of brings all the colors back to the surface kind of thing before I continue painting. It sort of evens out the gloss on them. So I'm going to jump over to my paint brushes because the other part of the tools. So here's the paint brushes. All right. Woo. I've got everything's on wheels if I can to move things around. So here's the brushes. I've got a whole variety of brushes. Essentially, I have three basic kinds of brushes. I have what, you know, your bristle brushes, which are these guys here. Bristle brushes are nice and stiff, and they're the stiffest of the bunch that I use. You can lay the paint on, obviously a little bit, well, thicker with them. But when I want to smooth areas out, sometimes that's not the best option. But it's great in early stages, or if I need to really add opaque tones into skies and so on, into clouds or white areas. The other brushes I tend to use a lot are synthetics. So here's some synthetics here. These are by Robert Simmons. I've been using theirs for many years. All the ones I'm showing you right now at this point in time. So these come in a variety. They come as small, big. I use filberts a lot. Filberts are the rounded ones because they don't leave hard edges. Flats, which are very rectangular, tend to leave more of an edge when you lay them down. That's good for certain applications, but put it this way. I start with one brush and I just keep reaching over and over and over and I wind up with a mess like this. So that's how it goes. And then when I get into finer detail, I will go to the sables, or the synthetic sables. And, sorry, I'm just gonna reach over because I need a paper towel. There we go. And the sables, these guys here, there we go. I can't get it to focus, but you'll see they're kind of glossy. That's because they're all dipped in olive oil. And I'll talk about that in a second. So these guys here, they leave the softest stroke on the canvas, I find. And so when I want to do subtle edging, I'll go reach for these guys here. They allow a nice way of sort of transitioning colors and putting fine highlights and so on. Recently, I started playing with some Princeton brushes. Now, one of my favorite brushes of all time has been for some reason for this guy here, which is a diagonal, what do you call it? A diagonal something, an angle. There's a name for it, which I can't remember. Diagonal something. And but the diagonal allows you to put your brush against the canvas and hold your hand at a comfortable angle. And just what's beautiful is you can go wide stroke and then you can turn it on edge and you get very fine lines. So for doing water and things like that, where I can really turn it on edge and drag it. And this because it's diagonal, you can't do that with a flat brush. And so when I found out that Princeton made these larger diagonal brushes, because the other one's not that large, I got really excited and I started using those. So now I got like big ones, which are just amazing. And so thank you, Princeton. They sent me these to try them out. On that big painting back there, these have just been incredible for just covering ground. And also, something I never thought I'd use much, this is also by Princeton, is an Aspen. A little skinny brush, but it's been just skinny this way, but wide. And allows a lot of fast coverage on the canvas. Every brush is just so unique. The Princeton, they're a little bit longer, and they just, they seem to lay the paint into the little gullies on the canvas beautifully and smoothly and quickly. You don't have to fight to sort of, when I'm using one of these, it's stiffer and I have to sort of fight to get the paint to spread and flow and get in. Anyway, so I've been really enjoying these Princeton brushes. And then for old school, hardware store. This is just a brilliant finish. I got no idea who makes this, but the beauty of this basic, it's about a $10 one, so it's a little bit better. But this has been indispensable, especially when I'm doing large areas that require subtle blending. Or sometimes if I want to do a really smooth sky, I'll lay the paint down and then I'll go in and I'll actually dab along or just kind of, it's just, yeah, it's really indispensable to have. But one thing I don't like to do is, hey, Carol, nice to have you over here. One thing I don't like doing is washing my brushes. I'm kind of lazy that way. And so I started adopting a habit of taking my brushes here and dipping them all in olive oil. So the olive oil, this is really dirty olive oil now, but I do have a fresh bottle over here. Jamie Oliver, thank you, sir. Olive oil allows my brushes to stay wet, to stay moist. I can clean them, get everything I can off, first of all, with my odorless thinner, and then dip them in here. With the coating of olive oil, I've basically left all these brushes here for, gosh, many of them months at a time, and it keeps them from drying out. I don't have to take them to the house and wash them thoroughly and coat them. Sometimes I will do that because I don't want them to fall apart, but it's been just a great way of doing of looking after brushes, especially when I'm out painting in the field where I don't want to clean and brush and dry and everything else. I just dip them in olive oil after I try to get the main stuff off, wrap them in a Ziploc bag, and then move on to the next place and take them out again. Now, somebody said my brushes are very neat. Didn't used to always be that way. So this pile of brushes here, let me get back on here. Hey, Oregon, thanks for coming. This is what happens. These were all organized, and then I'll grab for one brush, and I'll grab another one, and they start to make a pile. But before I had this basic system here, let me wheel it around so you can see. Let's see if we can make this work. Sorry, I'm having too much fun with this jib. I got to keep moving it. There we go. So instead of one big pile, I finally decided a couple, last year, I think, after 15 years of just letting them be a pile, to organize them a bit. And I went into the other room, grabbed some scrap wood, and made some slots. And so for those who are handy, the slots on this side, where the closer to the bottom of the handles, is narrower, and this one's wider because the brushes tend to be wider and narrower. And by category, roughly, I created slots so I can put all my brushes in and keep them together. It took me maybe an hour, and why I didn't do it a decade ago, I have no idea. But now, ever since I've done that, and I just screwed it right into the table, which is a table that I got at a garage sale one day. Oh, I got a fun brush. I got to show you one fun brush. So sometimes when I'm working on a painting, I want to get far away. And so for that, I know some companies make brushes with really long handles, but I wanted a really long handle with a very fine tip. And so what I did is I took two brushes and basically spliced them together very carefully here. So I got this one specialty brush. It's really long. And speaking of brushes and things handmade, I have a maul stick, and a maul stick, for those who don't know, you can lean on it while you're painting, and it allows you to get a little more stability. And so my maul stick has a history in that I've had this for about 20 years. I made this from a broomstick handle, and I hand whittled it, and even the end's a little bit smaller. This end has sort of a bit of felt or something like that I taped to it. And it's been with me for, like I said, over 20 years. I even took it on our first expeditions to Lake Superior and Georgian Bay while canoeing. And I had to be very careful because our youngest, Sydney, was 2.5 years old at the time, and I think she wanted to use it like a walking stick. And I said, no, don't break it. It took too long. So this lives out here all the time. When I'm in the field, I don't take it anymore. I just use my hiking poles instead, which are very handy. So that's a bit of the paints, a bit of the brushes, and I guess there's a painting over here that needs some work. So I guess throw some questions in there if you don't mind. I'm going to start laying some paint down on my palette and try to answer some more questions as we go along and go from there. Let's see. Yes, Mark, question number 2 from Mark. He was asking, your paintings often have a deeply muted and even palette. So he mentioned he doesn't seem to gravitate so much towards dramatic sort of sunlight and sunset and so on and so forth. He said they're kind of calming rather than dramatic, almost monochromatic. Well, part of the reason for that has been probably because when I started painting the Arctic a number of years ago, I started to discover that what I would often rely upon for paintings down here or even on Lake Superior and Georgian Bay is those evenings and morning time. So if you look at my earlier work and some of my paintings from there, or even, well, as you saw over here, you know, there's actually quite a bit of dramatic light in that painting in particular. But the Arctic, I started to discover, of course, that, well, the sun wasn't setting and it wasn't rising while I was up there. And how many layers do you typically have to a piece? I think I get what you're saying. It just goes on forever. No, not in acrylics, or in everything is straight oils. So there's a fair bit of color in those pieces. You know, over here, you know, there's quite a bit of color, especially getting to ice and the blues. And here was a sort of end of day. There it is, that guy there, that little guy. That's ice and incredible color coming into that. But I've gravitated especially to colors that are, I guess I'm more into subtlety. I really don't want to create a crass looking oversaturated Instagram-like image. You know, I think photography has, and for the most part, is often very oversaturated. We see oversaturation in all the television programs, make it, you know, travel. And I'm after what I'm really feeling when I'm seeing out there, and to try to highlight certain colors that maybe, you know, connect more on an emotional level. And of course, the landscape. In this case, it's actually naturally not the most colorful. However, you know, fall in the Arctic can be incredible. And so we start to get some fall colors down in the ground here, some yellows and some light kind of coming through. So for a gray day, there's some colors there. But yeah, I think it's more just a reflection of trying to share these places as they hit me and as they are. And I really strive to create that sense through subtlety as much as anything else. Yeah. So back to my palette, and got to get some painting in here. So how are we holding up over there? I know we've been going for, oops, sorry. Keep wanting to move the camera. How are we holding up? I'm going to get some paints on here. This may be not the most exciting part. You know, they say about watching paint dry, but I'm going to put paint on. So this painting I started a while ago is actually one of the last paintings that I'm finishing for our Into the Arctic book. I have supposed to have this done and another little piece over there done for the end of the month. So it's going to be really close. Probably not quite there. I'm going to go over time a little bit. But these will be the last couple of paintings to go into the Arctic book, of which there are almost 100 paintings from across the Arctic. So our publisher has everything except for these guys, and as soon as I photograph them, I'll send them along. And so I'm excited to wrap these up to know that it sort of marks the end of this collection that's going to be in print in the book. And then afterwards, and this is just an idea for if you want to do something like this again, and and maybe just something more focused and not rambling all over the place. I have to then shift into paintings that I began for my 2019 expedition. Well, let's call it a trip. It wasn't a heavy expedition, but to Greenland and the Canadian Arctic. I was a guest aboard a vessel for a couple of weeks, and some of those paintings that I showed you earlier need to work their way into completion. Some of them I need to do larger, and some of them I need to sort all that out. And some of them I only began as sketches in the field. And yeah, before I forget, I'm going to change gears again. Why not? I'm going to show you something over here, because we didn't talk about this at all. So this, I have a couple of my sketchbooks out here. And in my sketchbooks, so this is the one from the 2019 trip I did with One Ocean Expeditions. Sadly, this company went under since, but it gave me an opportunity to go to Greenland for my very first time. And the challenge of painting from the ship is that it's moving. And so consequently, I wound up having to start a number of my images as sketches only. So for those who are into the drawing side of things, here's my drawing kit, because we're talking about art kits and I forgot about this one. So here we go. Drawing kit. The Ziploc bag. Always keep everything in a Ziploc bag. And yeah, let's see, where did I put my tripod? Ah, my tripod's over there. I'll do it by hand for now. There we go. Okay. So my pencil kit's pretty basic. I mean, I guess it's got HB, 2B, 2B, you name it. One of my favorite drawing implements is actually a graphite stick. Basically, what is it? An HB graphite stick. And what's beautiful about that is I can turn it sideways to cover ground and get shading, or else I can get just a fine point to it as well. And that's basically my kit when I'm out in the field. And as I mentioned in Greenland, I was up for 2 weeks on the ship. I did start those paintings over there, but numerous times I had to just run out and get a quick sketch done. And some of these sketches I need to develop further into paintings. So some are very lightly done. I don't go too heavy or dark in the field usually, because I like to have the ability to change them back in the studio. Well, that's really light. Sometimes there's only time to get an idea together quickly. There's a few ideas here. Some were ideas that I knew that I wanted to paint, but just did not have time to paint. And so, consequently, I actually did a thumbnail on one of these that I know that I want to turn into a painting. There's another little sketch there. So these all need to get finished up over the next while also. And maybe I could always do a little live stream if people want to see that process. This is off the coast of Greenland as well, from the Zodiac. Started in the Zodiac. It was really bouncy. Everybody's nice enough to stay put. And this guy. So one evening we were going past this stunning iceberg, and it was so quick. The sun was coming down. We were going past the iceberg, and in the distance you can I don't know if you can kind of make it out there, but this is sort of the vague outline of Baffin Island as we were leaving Baffin Island, heading to Greenland. And what you don't see, of course, here is the color. It was just mind-blowing. You got the suns up there. You've got the close-up icebergs that were sort of being caught in the sun. And then you got distant icebergs through the fog and more back there. And so this is a piece that I purposely, instead of just sketching, I sat down after the experience and developed a little composition that I want to turn into a painting. So I'll turn this into a color study probably first, and then possibly something larger. So there's lots of work ahead for me once I wrap up these for the book. Let's see. There we go. Oh, there we go. Another iceberg down by some Greenlandic community whose name I cannot remember or probably pronounce properly. All right. So that's a bit of the sketching side. I want to share that. So that's for those who are taking notes. If not, we can tell you later. It is Canson 1557 drawing paper that I've been using. There's two sides to the paper. One is rougher than the other, and I work on the back side, which is smoother. And I want to mention one more thing before I get back to the easel, and that is framing. All our framing for just about, well, the last 15 years has been with a company called Photographic Frames. They have done they've done beautiful moldings. At the beginning of the Arctic project, we actually want to start framing everything consistently so that after years, if we had a tour at the beginning of the project, we didn't, then we could have a cohesive presentation of all the work. And so we started working with them closely on that. So this big one's a photo frame as well. They're not far, they're about 25 minutes from where we're at, but they're all over the place. Similar over here, this is photo framing as well, a combination of two. So they've been wonderful to work with, and they've been really a great support to our projects as we've been moving along. So I wanted to make sure I said a couple words because they've been great. So thank you guys at Photo Frames, and we are back. All right. So I'm hoping Yukon's going to make it here soon. See, I can't make a phone call. If not, then I'll go get him later on. But first, let me get some painting on here. And like I say, maybe we should take a vote at some point if we should just come back and just do a separate painting session, because there's so much setup, I mean, that it can go on forever. Or if you guys want to stick with it, and I'll actually get some painting done while you're still here. Maybe if you guys can let me know what your approach would like to be, because I could always come back and just do a more dedicated, straight-up painting session. But I'm just going to be painting the rest of the day anyway, so it's up to you if you want to stay here and join me. All right. So colors, I'll talk out the colors I'm putting down for those who are interested in the details and why some of these colors are here. I don't always use them all, but I like to have them all. And there's probably about 20 some colors I think here. So the weird thing about painting, of course, is that normally I'm not talking to anybody. Unless we're making a film, in which case I am. So that's a little different, I guess. Here we go. So music. So while I'm painting, speaking of not talking, I will often, everybody's got their own taste in music, but I quite often like to, oh, my screen is frozen on the sketchbooks. Maybe you can try reloading your page, Chuck, because I see I'm far from the sketchbooks at this point. Yeah, so music. One of my music choices is to have a playlist of film scores. You know, film music is designed to connect people emotionally to that which they are watching. And to, you know, if I'm working on a big dramatic sky or, you know, these big, you know, incredible mountains, it's epic. And some of these scenes are just completely, you know, they're mind-blowing. Listening to that kind of music can elevate sort of my emotional connection to that which I'm working on. And so that's something I'll often do is, you know, there's all kinds of different music out there, but that, oh, glad it worked. Thank you. Hey, Alan. Nice to see you guys here. Thanks for coming by. I thought I saw your name pop up earlier. Sounds good. Thanks for coming by. So I'm going to start on the right to left, generally speaking. I'm going to, you got a lot of glare. Let me see if I can fix the glare on this thing. Yeah. Oh, for those who are wondering, this is actually another small portable easel, and I use this to hold my palette because I can adjust its height and its angle really nicely. So that's where that comes in handy. What are you doing now? Cleaning off your palette. Well, it's clean now. My palette is clean. And now I'm going to lay down some colors, starting from right to left. I will start with a cool yellow. And this is a cadmium yellow lemon. I always like to have, always love to have a really cold color. So my palette, one of the most important things, if I had to get rid of everything, would be to have cools and warms of every color. And so if you think of cool and warm, cool lemons are very cold yellow, whereas the sun is like a really hot yellow. And that's my first one that I lay down there. Then I'll have a warmer yellow, more of a cadmium yellow, laying down next door to it. A little bit warmer, I think. It gives me options to try to create depth and so on. Hey, Javier, thanks for coming by. All right, let's see here. I'd like to then jump into, these two are really close, so I'm just kind of, I don't need both of them actually. I'm kind of just overdoing it with that. Then I'll get into a yellow ochre. This is a yellow ochre light, a light version of it. So, and then there's also one next to it is going to be, let's see, raw sienna light. Well, I guess love the fact that you're lazy about cleaning brushes. Well, I figure if I have to spend all my energy doing other things, I've got to save energy somewhere. Orange. This is my tube is getting very small. I'll have to dig out another one soon. This is a great color that I never had before called, oh my gosh, this is embarrassing, but, woohoo. Okay. It's Indian Yellow by My Mary. It is a lovely, lovely yellow-orange, but it's really intense. And like I said about these colors that I found different than other paints, is that if I want to get a highlight that's very bright, you often have to, and opaque at the same time, one has to usually add white to the color, and that will often make it kind of pastel color. So these colors by My Mary Puro are book pre-orders. Oh yes, the book orders are still open. I appreciate you guys asking. I appreciate you guys pre-ordering the book as well. That's a big help. We're trying to figure out with the publisher how many to print. So the more pre-orders we get, the easier it is to sort of figure out how big the print run should be. So really thank you guys for that. But this color, when I mix it with white, it's so intense that I can get the opacity and the chroma as well. I can really sort of keep the color strong. So it's one of the things I've been enjoying about these paints. It took a little getting used to them because they are so strong. They're pure single pigments colors. So I like very much that the materials that I use, I've always strived to make sure that they are truly as archival and as good quality as I can get, so that the work itself in our collectors' hands and it goes to their families and so on will be around for many, many years and hold up well. No problem. Ingrid, I'm probably not going to do the whole painting process right here because this has been a long kind of introduction. I'll get it going. I'll keep doing a bit. Anybody has to leave, please feel free to leave. I'm going to dabble on here, talk a little bit more. And maybe we can line up to do a session where I actually just start right here. The paints will all be laid out and go through that process. But you guys let me know if you want that because I don't want to force myself on anybody. So if you're interested, let me know. Oh, well, don't go yet. Everybody, don't go yet. He's here. He's made an appearance. Oh, just in time, too. Good time. We're just certain. Some people are wrapping up because, all right, so Yukon, Jack, has made it. Oh, first of all, there's Janet. Janet, say hi.
Hi.
It's Janet, my awesome wife and best friend.
This went for a long hike. So.
Oh, there he is. And I'm going to get the camera down low here so everybody can meet Yukon. Can you meet there, Yukon? Hey, buddy. Come on over here. All right. Hey, buddy. Here, sit. I'm going to have to take the camera off of here for a sec. Bring the camera to Yukon. There we go. Hey, buddy. There he is. Yukon. He doesn't seem too happy. He just went for a walk through the creek, apparently, with Janet. And, where'd he go? There. He's camera shy. Well, there he is. Oh, okay. There we go. Oh, he was just in the creek having fun. Hey, buddy. Come here. Here you go. There he is. All right. Well, not so exciting for him, I guess. He's turning 14 years old. He's great company. And he hangs out with me often in the studio. He's got his own little bed here. There it is. You want your bed? And, he must be pooped from that big walk. So there you go, folks. He doesn't want to talk too much today, but I could probably just leave the camera on him for a while, and people would be happier. There we go. Yukon. So Yukon Jack, there's a purpose. Oh, by the way, somebody may wonder, why is he called Yukon? Okay, so Yukon Jack, we as a family were in the Arctic in the west coast of the Yukon. And in a phone booth before heading further into the field. Our daughters were 7 and 11 years old. And we called Janet's brother, who had a litter of puppies. And this was the only one left. And we'd be talking about having a dog all this time. And lo and behold, we made this commitment while the 4 of us were crammed in the phone booth just outside of Inuvik that we would take him. And that was almost 14 years ago. We got back home and we decided it was an apt name to call him Yukon, because that's where we were when we made the decision to actually get him. So that's Yukon. Thank you, Yukon. All right. All right. So, I'm just going to carry on here. You guys are welcome to hang for a while. If you've got any questions, yes, thank Janet for bringing them in. Let me just let me do an official sign off. Let's just sign off here because I just want to give people freedom to go or stay or whatever they want to do. And like I say, we'll check out all the comments in in your notes and your ideas. We'll put them together and do what we can to maybe do some more of these later on. It's been fun for me. It's really fun to connect with all you guys this way. It's been kind of quiet out here for the last few months, which is something that obviously I'm very used to. But that said, it's very nice. And before I forget, yes, these are questions like this. Mark had one more question. Could you speak about the relative importance of each of the following: composition, light, texture? So, I'm glad to get into more really kind of deep art stuff, but I think I'm going to have to save that for another time. I will paint for a while, but let me just say thank you all for coming out to put up with all the technical issues I've had trying to make this work. And look forward to possibly doing it again sometime. If you have a chance, please go to CORYTrepanier.com. At the bottom is a subscribe button for our newsletter. Social media is great, but we send out a newsletter every month, and through that you can get our latest paintings as they're completed, news of the film when it comes out. Our films are with a new distributor right now. We're waiting to see where that leads, and hopefully find a new home for everything. And share ideas with schools. I mean, I'm glad to do something like this with schools. I know it was all over the place. It was very unfocused, but it's part of the fun. So look forward to seeing you guys again sometime. For those who want to stay, please feel free to stay. I'll ramble on some more and I'll do some painting. For those who have to go, thank you so much for all coming. And I think that's all for now. Please tell your friends, and I'll check into your ideas later on. If anybody likes, I could always post a couple pictures of the barn, the before pictures, if you want to see what this place looked like before we started the renovations. There are some places we haven't gone to in the barn, so maybe next time I'll have to show you what's behind some of those hidden doors. And but in the meantime, thanks for coming out, and you all take care in this time of isolation. Stay close with all your friends and family that you can, and be creative. And thanks again. I'll turn to the canvas for a while. And I'll keep yakking too while I'm at it. So here we go. Cadmium Red Medium. That's a very handy color, although I haven't used it in great strength. In the Arctic, it's great for certain colors, for mixing especially, warming things up. Okay, an indispensable color I'd never do without on my easel is Alizarin Crimson, a deep, deep, dark red. Great for mixing deep blacks, and you want to sort of bring some life to them, so, Ooh. Let's see here. Well, thank you, Shannon. I appreciate that very much. Greens. I don't tend to do a lot of greens on my palette. I like to have a couple, though, just for mixing. They're often kind of a transparent. They don't really seem to hold up, so I'll mix a lot of my greens with blues and yellows and so on. But it's nice to have a couple, especially when I want to just shift the shade of a dark color one way or another. And So I mentioned, if anybody knows, I've yet to find a Cerulean Blue that is really light. And so this is an old tube of actual student grade that I got from Georgian from years ago. And there's just something about it that is just so light. You know, I'm gonna let's have some fun with the camera here. Sorry, I'm not gonna touch the camera. I promise. I won't. I will bring the palette to you so you can see what's going on. There we go. There, that a little better. Let's get right in on it here. Woo, this is fun. All right. So this color right here I'm talking about, that guy. Oh, that. It's hard to find one this light. So yes, Ken, it will be saved for later, absolutely. And well, you got to miss the technical issue, so there'll be two parts. We have to restart the stream after a bit. But anyway, so Cerulean Blue, very key, and this one is particularly light. I love the I love the Cerulean Blue that my Mary makes as well. It's a little bit darker, and they both have a purpose, especially when working with skies. I really don't like to make, there is no one color anywhere. The sky is a gradation of a variety of different blues and yellows and oranges, and so having all these choices just allows me so much flexibility in mixing. Thanks, Rick. All the best to you as well. Cobalt Blue. Indispensable. Cobalt. It's just a beautiful blue. It's, I don't know what it is about it. When you think of blue, think of cobalt. That comes to mind. French ultramarine. I use it occasionally. It's got a lot of red in it. I can often mix Alizarin Crimson, some of these redder tones, into the blues. But again, it's a bit cooler. We're getting kind of cooler. And then we get into a real... Did I clean this one yet? Ooh. Phthalo. Oh, by the way, I do have an idea before I forget. Okay. Yeah, I think that's spelled right. I have a look at Cobalt Teal. Ooh, that would be a good one too. Something I've been thinking about now. Of course, I got to do this on my cell phone, so because there's no internet out here. But if there's interest, I was thinking, maybe after doing a session in here, that it would be fun to actually take you guys out. Everybody's all stuck in their homes a lot these days. We're very, very blessed to be in a place where I can still have access to nature, and I'm so grateful for that. But also very conscious of how many people are in their apartments and so on. And I thought perhaps because of this portable technology, I could test out the internet outside, and maybe we can do a little painting session outside where it's just kind of going out, finding something, setting up the easel, and doing a little plein air painting by the creek or something like that, and share a bit of nature at the same time. So that's an idea. If you guys are interested, let me know, or if you have other ideas. Yeah, see what happens. In the meantime, I got paintings to finish. Okay, so this is guy here. Prussian Blue. There it is. Prussian Blue. Very, very strong color. It's a strong, deep blue that's super cool, and it's great, especially when mixing darker colors. I do have black. Some people say, oh, you shouldn't have black on your palette. Sure, why not? But I don't use it a lot. It does tend to sort of kill the saturation of a color, which can be helpful. But when I want to mix a dark color, I rarely use black. Sienna. Oh, I'm sorry. I just put this one on there. Another color that I found rather indispensable, and I haven't found anything like it. It's from the other round. It's just from the ones I used for the last 15 years before, and it is an indigo. And I don't know about permanence and all that, but it is a beautiful shade of blue that is just I haven't been able to replace. It's just really nice for darker tones, shades. Getting into those darker areas without being too strong when I want to just darken things. This guy. Let me get down further. There we go. Is a sienna. We get some kind of sienna there. Yeah, a burnt sienna. So yeah, the process of starting up each day is usually a good 20 minutes, a half hour, just setting up my colors. I'm really liking, my Mary also has a line of artist paint that are not as expensive or as high-end as their Puro, and that's this Artista. And the raw umber in the especially in the earthy tones that I'm finding up in the Arctic, as you see there in the background. Okay. Another one of these colors that I love is Sepia. It's a dark brown, but it's quite neutral. And this Sepia is back to the Daler Rowney ones. Is a color that I still haven't been able to replace with anything else. Just love it. Alongside the good old Payne's Gray. Now this one's a big time saver actually. This and the Sepia I use a lot in my darker tones initially to sort of lay the stage without the color being too overly intense, because I want those shadows in my paintings to kind of recede. And sometimes, of course, you need to have a lot of color in them, especially conditions of snow and so on. So it really depends. Let's see, and I think I'm missing one color in here somewhere. For those who didn't see it, this is my basket of colors, and I'm looking for one more. Here it is. Burnt umber. Good old burnt umber. I need a bit more of that on the palette here. Whoops, there goes my cap. Okay, so my palette at long last is ready to paint. Oh, that's the indigo is, sorry, that was kind of quick. It was probably in reverse, that's why. It's Daler Rowney Professional. And let me see, I have it back here. There we go. It's probably backwards, but it's Daler Rowney Artist Oil Color. And it's the professional line. It is a number 127 indigo. Voila. If that doesn't make sense, then please text me or put it through on the questions, and I'll get some answers over to you. So the palette at last is laid out. Let me get back over here, and you guys can come over here and join me. There we go. I fiddle a lot when I'm painting. I'm always adjusting. Always trying to make things a little better if I can. Put that phone back in. No problem. So I'm going to pull up my screen over there. For those who missed it earlier, it's a little, there we go. This is the screen I use for some of my photographic reference. Hooked up to the ceiling up there, to a whole rig that moves left, right, in, out, up, down. And, I try to sort everything I can in the field and get as much as I can done out there. But it's not always possible to remember everything. Therefore, I have this. That's another thing. I can get into camera gear later, what I carry when I'm out painting, because that's a whole other ball of wax, but I try to keep it fairly simple. In a nutshell, it's a Canon 80D, and I use 2 lenses by and large, and that covers the gamut of what I need to shoot and still carry in a little portable bag in my chest. But, we can go through some gear stuff later on when it comes to expedition stuff and so on, if there's interest in that. So let me see here, my reference. Oh, yeah, for those who are into the technical stuff more. So I still use Aperture, good old Aperture on Apple, because there's no better way I found to keep all my images and libraries handy and quickly. It makes it easy to run through my photos from the field. And it's just, there's nothing better for me. So I stick to Aperture after all these years. And even though they stopped making Aperture a long time ago. A fish just jumped in the lake. Well, too bad I missed it, and hopefully some char. So you can see all the different libraries I have. I'll do this. Might as well show this stuff too while I'm doing this. There we go. So I can quickly go through my libraries, like say in Aperture. They stopped making Aperture 5-6 years ago. My old Mac screen, and I've got it. Oh, by the way, this is powered by a Mac Mini that I have sitting up above the platform there. In case people are wondering, is that an iMac on the end of your tripod? It's not. This whole tripod's only holding the monitor, so it's much lighter. And there we go. So somewhere in here are reference shots. I think that might be it. Sometimes I have hundreds and hundreds of reference photos. It all depends on what the image is. So that's some of the reference that I have. The beautiful part about Aperture is I can just zoom in, zoom out, and move around really quickly and easily. And that is so handy to have if I want to see details, or just go back to full screen mode. It's a handy idea. So those all reside on this computer here. Like I say, depending on the particular painting, I may have many, many other photos. So that's kind of some of the reference I'm using. But of course, nothing replaces the experience of actually being out there. I wish I had a photographic memory, but that is not the case. Let's see if this, all right. So what's next on this painting? So you may wonder. Well, there's a few things. I had a weird, here, I'll share something that's unusual. I don't know if you can see this, but I had some weird blotching happening on the painting. Add a catalog images if you have hundreds. Yeah, here, sure, there would be another. Yeah, I've got probably, how do I catalog photos? Someone's asking my reference. That is, there's a process I've kind of developed over the years that would be fun to share. Hey, no problem, Petra. Glad you can make it. Well, like I say, you said she'll have to watch to the end later. I don't know if there's going to be an end to this at some point. I'll just paint a little bit more here. Actually get some painting on the canvas so that those who came for some painting can see some painting. But this blotchiness, which is very odd, the paint was completely smooth, and as it dried, the blotches came through. And so this has happened on occasion before. So the trick to really making this work and to get rid of it is putting more paint didn't work. It'd still bleed through. And I don't know what the technical issue is. I've even checked with a conservator who'd never heard of it before. So it's happened just rarely. So what I've done is I've put two completely thick coats of retouch varnish to seal it off. And now that I've done that, I can paint over top and fix that. So one of the first things I need to do here is to rework the sky to cover up the blotches and bring some of the light out a little bit more. So I think I'll start with that so I can get the brushes moving and then get into other details and stuff later on. And so this is where these Princeton brushes are really nice, for those who missed the brushes earlier. And for those who are just tuning in, by the way, I'm Corey. Nice to have you out. Thank you for coming. Be with me. Keep me company in the studio. Normally it's just my dog Yukon, so this is nice company. All right. So this guy here, we talked about him earlier. Going to clean, very critical. So as mentioned before, these are all dipped in olive oil to keep them from drying out when I'm in the studio. I don't have to go wash them in the house and all that. And I will clean off using my paint thinner here, which is just mineral spirits, as much as I can get off before using them again. I don't want that oil to be laying onto the canvas and then maybe causing drying problems. I usually keep a cloth, a nice rag on my right leg so I can do further dipping if I need to. And I need more mineral spirits in my little container down here. All right, so now I got to mix some colors up. So I'm going to put the camera here so you can kind of see it all at the same time. See if that works. Phew, I pressed the power button. That was scary. There we go. Okay. So, titanium white. I'm going to grab some of that. Quite a bit because there's going to be a lot of sky stuff. Now, I'm going to actually unplug my ear things here because I'm going to be pulling the camera all over the place. A little too... There we go. And that's where a bit of that Payne's gray can dark it down nicely. Just too much will make it too gray, so I start going at colors all over the place. Now in the sky, even though it's very overcast, there's a variety here. of different shades. So I've got some cooler tones in the darker clouds and a bit of light coming through here. And I'm probably going to accentuate a bit of that warmer tone in here to create more depth and, again, trying to convey what I'm feeling when I'm out there, because when that bit of light was coming through and breaking through on this side, it sort of really added to the mood. So there'll be some warmer tones in through here and slightly cooler. Again, not overdone, because I don't want to look like it's an Instagram photo that's been, you know, hit with high saturation, but enough that it creates this subtle sort of sense of reality. And that's the problem, is this, I touched the yellow, but it's very strong yellow, so it got a little too strong for me there. So clean some of that off and carry on. And that's, so I'll often mix blue with orange, some of my Cobalt Blue with some of my Cadmium Orange, to kind of get a bit of that toned down blue, because the blue is too blue and it's not blue enough now. And now I'll go for a bit of that indigo. So you see, even just to get that one shade, I've probably got 6 different colors that I've mixed so far. I get a bit of blue, and it's pushing too much one way, then push the other way, and push back the other way, until I kind of get it feeling, you know, just right. Thank you, Dale. Will do. Oh, hey, Rita. Nice to see you. There we go. We're kind of getting there. And the beauty of this big, wide brush is it lets me, you know, being an angular brush like that, is I can hold my hand at an angle and it makes contact this way instead of like that. And allows me to move it along and change it up. Now, you may have seen, you know, some people, everybody's got a different process. Some will sort of paint the sky, and they'll paint the middle section, then they'll paint down below everything. What does it say here? Connection available. Well, I don't know if that cut out or not, but I might still be here. I'm not sure if I am. I paint everything. I kind of just go at it and try to build up the whole painting organically, so that everything is always relating to each other, as opposed to, I don't feel I can actually ever finish one place before I start another, you know, completely, just because there's just too much going on. I want to take it as a whole, and so I'm squinting a lot while I'm doing it. I had a little availability connection thing go on. Can someone just tell me if you're still getting a connection, please? Yes, you are still running. Oh, okay. Thank you, Annette. I appreciate that. So you'll also, when I've seen some other people paint, some of their process involves pre-mixing a lot of colors. Personally, I've always found that I kind of, it's a troublesome thing, but I mix as I go. I'm just always mixing as I go. I don't know how I want it to, you know, the idea of pre-mixing pools of colors, for me, feels a little limiting, because I may get into a certain point where that's not where I want it to be. And every stroke, if I keep varying the strokes and varying the color and laying them down to each other, it takes me more in the direction that I want to go in, of some of this, again, it's the subtlety and the lack of sameness. I want everything really to be unique and different. And consequently, I don't mix enough paint quite often, so I got to keep remixing. So maybe someday I will pre-mix bigger pools of color. Do I have a set schedule painting? I can't say I really have a set painting schedule. You know, when things get going well, I'll try putting this back in again, just see if I can reach. By the way, in case anybody was wondering, that little furry guy is over the microphone on my earbuds, because when I was outside, I was getting some bad wind noise. So that was kind of my daughter said I should put little eyeballs on it, little jiggly eyes. That would be fun, perhaps. Well, I'll keep one ear in. There we go. And I can still reach. Painting schedule. It's always been a struggle for me to really get a solid painting schedule, regular painting schedule, I should say. Because I may get going at one point, and I just don't want to stop until I'm exhausted. And I generally can go a good, 2-3 hours straight and then take a break. Then go at it again. So it's not a good habit, but sometimes, I'll come out here after dinner and I'll go, and if things are going, then I'm just going to keep going until 3, 4 in the morning. I don't know how many times I've worked really late into the night. When the flow is happening and things are moving along, or there's certain passages in the painting I really want to get done before moving on further, then I try to stick with it and develop more stamina. And that's really kind of my approach. I've never been a 9 to 5 kind of person. There are other things that often take up my time during the day, which are distractions, which currently now I've had a nice opportunity to have far more focused painting time than I've ever had. A lot of the talks I've needed to do and other events have all been canceled, and it's been actually an opportunity for me to focus more on the art, which has been wonderful. I've got so much to finish in here that it's been a helpful time in that regard, being able to focus on here in the studio. So Bob Ross, I'm not. This isn't going to be done in this isn't going to be done in 20 minutes. My process will involve coming back and forth to this painting for oftentimes for weeks. It has already, sometimes longer. I like to have a lot of paintings on the go. Somebody was asking me earlier about jumping around from painting to painting. I like having a lot of paintings on the go, not just because it means that I've got a lot of work to do, and I'm very fortunate right now that most all the work's in here, except for that big one. And most of them do belong to somebody, and I'm working hard towards all those through the next few months. But it allows me to set a painting aside and move on to another piece, and then come back to us, and to reevaluate and reevaluate and reevaluate. The last thing I ever want to happen is a painting to go out the door too quickly, and then to go back and see it later, and then and feel that there's something else I should have done, and I didn't take the time to live with it and to see it again with a fresh set of eyes over and over again. So that's what happens. I wound up really working on a piece, setting it aside, and living with it long enough that I can come back to it and decide if there's more that needs to be done. Now, I could play some music in the background right now, but I think that if I play any of the movie soundtracks that I like, the video will probably get kicked off somewhere because I'm not allowed to use them. Now, this is a case where I talked about the easel being handy. Yeah, I want to bring it down a little bit because I'm now going to work on the sky section, and I don't want to have to get up. Probably one of the, painting is, it's what would I say? People often talk about painting as being this wonderful joy and relaxation and sort of this escape from reality where you just enjoy the creative process, and I do. It's very much that. But there's also struggle in the painting process for me. I find that the first initial stages of getting the paint covered is very exciting. You wind up covering the whole canvas and you got something new happening. And then you get into certain sections that are like work, and I don't know whether or not they're actually going to pan out. I have an idea in my mind, and is it really going to lead there? And so there's struggle and doubt and all these questions as you kind of go through it. And so those times are not exactly fun and joyful. Sometimes they're work, but it's all part of sort of pushing towards an end goal of trying to create a vision and realize something. And to me, I also feel that if I haven't worked hard enough at it, then I haven't pushed myself. And if I don't push myself, how can I ever get better? How can the work be better? How can what I'm trying to convey be more accurate to the emotion that I feel when I'm out there? So to me, it's really, work is something to be welcomed in the process. And it's something that over time you get used to. Sometimes I wonder now, is this going to really pan out? Well, if the thought was well enough executed, if the layout or the whole idea behind it has been well planned in terms of, I've lived with it long enough that I know I'm content with it, then I know now that I just have to push through those times and keep going at it until eventually it winds up being what I want it to be. And if it doesn't, then that's the beautiful part about oil paints. I can just paint over it and keep going. Well, I agree with that. There's got to be a balance of life. And how you get that balance in life, and some are scheduled people, has a lot to do with your personality. You know, I will make time to hang out with family. Absolutely. That's, you know, that nothing replaces that. But everybody's wired differently. You know, some people need 8 hours sleep. Some people do great on 6 hours sleep. You know, so it's finding that, and it's got so much to do with the people who live around. I mean, you know, I'm very fortunate that Janet and I sort of are similar. She's not a hyper-scheduled person, and so that allows us to live in harmony, even without sort of this set schedule idea. So it's not a one approach fits all. Really, one has to get to know who they are and how they work best in terms of getting things done and then going at it. I find that I'd rather spend 2 hours painting really completely focused at 110% than to spend 9 hours painting at 80%. And I don't think anybody can sustain intense focus for a long period of time and really deliver at their best without taking breaks, without sort of doing it that way. So, you know, you look at how athletes train and how others train, and you know, there's sense to some of the approach. I just don't want to get so comfortable that it becomes sort of ritual. I want it to be pushed. I want to really feel that I'm working at the outer edges of what I can do. Let's change up the view here. There we go. I'm just going to focus on this for a while and see what happens. Oh, I don't think I mentioned this, but I do have a YouTube channel, and on there I have a specific sort of set of tutorials that I did from the Arctic in 2018 that we put on there for free. So if anybody's interested in art instruction, we did a little, and it's more focused than this. I did sort of the sketching process. I did some of the gear, and while I was sitting on a glacier working on a painting. And anyway, you can find that on my YouTube channel. Please feel free to subscribe and to share it with others. But there's over 100 and some videos there, short films, and some instructional stuff too. So time to get into a bit more color in this foreground here. So one of the hard parts about this foreground, oh, thank you, Rita. The hard part about this foreground is there's actually a lot of little grasses and weeds in there. There we go. And so it's trying to simplify some of these areas, but yet still have, I want a certain amount of detail to come through, and to use the foreground, the detail level and the contrast level in the foreground to help set up the depth, because it's something that I really aspire in my work to do, is to create a sense of depth, like you can walk in there. So for that I need to change colors. Grabbing some slightly smaller brushes here. Actually using one of these hog hair bristles, because in the further back in the painting I don't really want to have super detail. I want the softer edges that a brush like this gives me. So it's more like patches of color along the way here. If there's too much detail far in the distance and it's too sharp, then it kind of starts to flatten the whole image. So there's a lot of ground cover, so I'm trying to break it up and simulate, a sense of detail without painting everything. And that's the challenge in this piece, because all the foreground stuff is interesting and fascinating on its own. Just trying to lay off some of that and just focus on ones that sort of help sort of create the illusion. Too much detail for me sort of make the image kind of too photographic and still sort of, I don't want to suck the life out of it and have it be completely. I want there to still be some brush movement here and there along the way. What I'll do, just so people know, is I'll maybe run for another 5-10 minutes, and then I'll close it off for the day, if that's okay. Sorry for those who are hoping for more painting today, but we can come back and do some of that later on, perhaps, and have it just be about that. No, I never use sponges for effects. Um, I've messed with them in the past. There's something, it's just, I think maybe it's because a sponge will create a certain look. And that look is, although there's all kinds of sponges, I suppose, and you could create different looks with different sponges, it's never sort of given me what I've wanted in terms of representing an actual leaf or an actual texture. I'd rather let my brushes sort of interpret what those things look like than to have a pattern laid over top to do that. There may be ways of doing it effectively. Personally, it's just been my choice to let each brush stroke sort of tell the story. Oh, you're welcome, Dan. Thanks for coming by. A lot of times I will work wet on wet here too. Although this is dry right now, I may come over with some wet paint and then so I can have edges that are a little bit softer. Well, thank you, Renee. Glad you got to see the exhibit out there. I'm going to back the camera up here for one last angle and just let that ride for a little bit longer and unplug. There we go. Maybe we'll finish it. There we go. Oh, the camera's moving. There. All right, so this is my official goodbye. Thanks for coming out. I'm just going to carry on for this for a while, then I'll pull the plug on this and go have a coffee or something. Anyway, take care, guys. Maybe we'll do this again sometime. Let me know if you got some ideas, and thanks again. Yukon! Hey! He's got to get on the show. Hey, come jumping. Don't want to get paint all over you. It's one thing about a dog in the studio, always getting paint on his tail. Take care, everybody. Hey, you gonna be hungry?